Have you ever felt the ground vanish beneath your feet, staring at a bank balance that seems to drain faster than you can fill it? It is a terrifying reality for anyone trapped in the cycle of relying entirely on a single paycheck to survive. When the world economy fractures, that single point of failure can cost you everything. But what if you could build a financial fortress so resilient that even a global meltdown could not breach its walls? This was the exact question facing Sarah in the bleak autumn of 2008. The financial crisis was tearing through the global economy, erasing trillions in wealth and shuttering businesses overnight. Sarah was a dedicated professional who played by the traditional rules, working hard and saving what she could in a standard savings account. But when the layoffs hit her company, she became a casualty of the crisis, facing a sudden and devastating job loss. The initial shock was paralyzing. Her severance package offered a brief, fragile cushion, but the reality of zero incoming cash flow quickly turned every daily expense into a source of deep anxiety. The traditional advice of simply finding another job felt hollow in an economy where hiring had completely frozen. She realized with terrifying clarity that her financial life lacked any true defense mechanism. How does someone climb out of a crater that deep when the entire economic landscape is burning? The answer lay not in chasing risky, desperate bets to get rich quick, but in a quiet, relentless pivot toward a radically different way of thinking about money. Sarah needed a system that would pay her regardless of whether she was clocked in at an office. She discovered the concept of a dividend, which is simply a portion of a company's profit paid out directly to its shareholders. By purchasing shares in established, profitable businesses, you become a part owner, and those companies send you a slice of their earnings on a regular schedule. It is cash deposited straight into your account, just for holding the investment. But to buy those income-producing assets, she first had to find the seed capital within her own depleted resources. Sarah ruthlessly audited her daily spending, implementing a strict crisis budget that stripped away everything but the absolute essentials. Every single dollar saved from a canceled subscription or a skipped meal out was no longer just a penny pinched, but a tiny soldier ready to be deployed. With her first few $100s of newly freed capital, she made her move. Instead of trying to pick one winning company, she focused on an ETF, or exchange-traded fund. An ETF is a basket of many different investments bundled together into a single fund that you can buy like a regular stock, instantly spreading your money across dozens or hundreds of companies. This approach provided immediate diversification, lowering her risk while still capturing that vital dividend income. She also had to carefully consider her asset allocation, which is the strategy of dividing your investment portfolio among different asset categories like stocks, bonds, and cash to balance risk and reward according to your personal timeline. Sarah tilted her allocation heavily toward defensive, dividend-paying equities, focusing on companies that sold essential goods like groceries, healthcare, and utilities. These were the businesses that people continued to rely on, even during the darkest days of the recovery. A few months later, the first payment arrived. It was small, barely enough to buy a cup of coffee, but the psychological impact was monumental. That tiny deposit represented her first taste of true passive income. She had not traded a single hour of her labor for that money. Her capital had gone to work, and it had brought back a profit. This is where the true engine of wealth building comes into play. To maximize her recovery, Sarah harnessed the power of compound interest, the process where the money your investments earn begins to earn money of its own. By automatically reinvesting every single dividend back into buying more shares of her funds, she was expanding her ownership stake without spending any additional out-of-pocket cash. The compounding engine was now running. Those new shares generated their own payouts, which bought even more shares, creating a snowball effect that grew larger and faster with each passing quarter. The discipline of her daily budget continued to feed this machine, proving that consistent, small actions multiply into massive, long-term results. Yet building lasting financial resilience is never a straight line. What happens when the market inevitably stumbles again, threatening the very foundation you are trying to construct? The years following the 2008 crash were notoriously volatile. The European debt crisis and various market flash crashes sent shockwaves through the global exchanges. Share prices would plunge, painting portfolio screens in terrifying shades of red. For many investors, this volatility triggered panic selling, locking in their losses and destroying their future gains. Sarah felt that same primal fear when she saw her account balances dip. The emotional toll of watching hard-earned capital shrink is a heavy burden, especially for someone who had already lost so much. The temptation to pull her money out and retreat to the perceived safety of cash was a constant whisper in the back of her mind. But her defensive strategy provided a crucial psychological anchor. While the share prices of her funds fluctuated wildly, the actual cash flow from her dividends remained remarkably steady. Many of the high-quality companies in her portfolio even continued to increase their dividend payouts year after year, completely ignoring the noise of the stock market ticker. This realization fundamentally shifted her relationship with market volatility. A drop in share prices was no longer a disaster, it was a massive discount. Because she was automatically reinvesting her dividends, those steady cash payouts were now buying more shares at lower prices. The market dips were actually accelerating her wealth accumulation. As the broader economy slowly began its long recovery, Sarah eventually secured a new job. But the woman who returned to the workforce was entirely different from the one who had left it. She no longer viewed her salary as her sole lifeline. Her paycheck was simply fuel to accelerate the income engine she had built during her darkest hours. With a steady salary restored, she aggressively expanded her strategy by maximizing her tax-advantaged accounts. She funneled her investments through her 401k at work to capture the employer match, and she fully funded her Roth IRA every single year. Using an IRA, or individual retirement account, allowed her to shelter her growing dividend income from taxes, ensuring that every single cent of compounding growth remained entirely hers. The years turned into a decade, and the quiet, persistent hum of reinvested dividends transformed her financial reality. The snowball effect had grown from a tiny flake into an unstoppable force. Her portfolio was no longer just a collection of shares. It was a second income stream, completely independent of her employer, her industry, or the state of the broader job market. The ultimate milestone arrived not with a massive lottery win or a sudden windfall, but on a quiet Tuesday when she reviewed her monthly statements. The dividend income generated by her portfolio had officially surpassed her basic living expenses. Her mortgage, her groceries, and her utilities were now entirely covered by the cash flow from her investments. This is the true definition of financial independence. It is the profound, unshakable peace of mind that comes from knowing you are no longer forced to trade your time for survival. Sarah had built a fortress so strong that the threat of another layoff or economic downturn no longer held any power over her life. But the impact of this journey extends far beyond a single bank account. How does mastering your own financial destiny ripple outward to shape the future? For Sarah, the wealth she built became a tool for generational change. The fear and scarcity that defined her experience in 2008 were replaced by confidence and abundance. She could now make career choices based on passion rather than desperation. She had the resources to support her family, fund educational opportunities, and pass on the critical lessons of financial literacy to the next generation. The broader economic landscape will always be unpredictable. Markets will soar, and markets will inevitably crash again. Recessions will come and go, sweeping away those who are unprepared. But the fundamental mechanics of wealth creation remain constant, waiting to be utilized by anyone willing to learn the rules. The journey from zero to financial freedom is not reserved for the lucky or the privileged. It is a deliberate, methodical process of taking control of your resources, understanding how capital works, and deploying it with unwavering discipline. The resilience forged in the fires of a crisis often becomes the strongest foundation for lasting prosperity. You hold the exact same power to rewrite your financial narrative. Whether you are recovering from a setback or simply starting from scratch, the tools are available to you right now. By prioritizing cash flow, embracing the math of compounding, and maintaining a long-term perspective, you can construct your own defensive strategy against whatever the future holds. Your financial independence is not a distant, impossible dream. It is a mathematical certainty built one intelligent decision, one saved dollar, and one reinvested dividend at a time. The path to lasting wealth is open, and the best moment to take your first step on that journey is today.